Okay, let's talk about Silent Hill 2. Developed by Team Silent, a group of misfits within Konami, is the 2001 follow-up to the 1999 original, if you didn't get there was a 2 in the title. And while that original game sold well, and was a technical marvel on the original PlayStation, I don't give a shit about Harry and his daughter. And you're probably already thinking, oh great, another video on this friggin' game by a mumble-mouth bellend. And firstly, ouch, and secondly, yeah, I feel the same way. Silent Hill 2 is a classic, and deserves all the flating it has gotten in the last 2 decades. But I feel amid this love fest, and years of picking apart this piece due to the pedantry of its most fanatical fans, the game, named Silent Hill 2, has been twisted and distorted to the point of parody. And in this video, I want to talk about it free from all this baggage, or at least try to, because kids, once you see the madness, it is very hard not to let that shit slip in. We start off staring at the Chevy Chase of our avatar, James Sunderland. Sadly, he's not in this shitter to find a cottaging partner. Instead, he's come to the sleepy resort town of Silent Hill after his wife gave him a letter asking him to meet her at their special place. And I have a tenner, it's behind the bins at Poundland. Anyway, the kicker here is that Mary, Jimmy's squeeze, has been dead for the last 3 years, so you can guess he's a little confused. And as he has nothing better to do, he's kind of a lonely sap, he saunters into this fog-filled town. On his way, he bumps into another wandering soul, called Angela, who has come to Creepyville-on-Sea to find her mother.
This town, there's something wrong with it. It's kind of hard to explain, but...
Is it dangerous?
Maybe. And it's not just the fog, either.
Okay, I got it. I'll be careful.
I'm not lying.
No, I believe you. It's just... I guess I really don't care if it's dangerous or not. I'm going to town either way.
Unperturbed, James strides towards the streets as the fog thickens. A blood trail leads to a shambling figure, ambling into the distance. So James follows this shadow until he finds it under a bridge, and he recoils in disgust at this moist ballsack, glistening with otherworldly terror. So James does the British thing and grabs a plank of wood to beat it to death.
Is it dead? What the hell is it? It's not human.
Beyond this point, the game briefly loosens its grip around your throat to let you explore. While it's not an open world game in a modern sense, these small sections where you get to explore the town are used as a story beat. Without words, we as the player are told that this town does not care about you, and if you allow it, you will aimlessly wander around it until you quit or collide with the thing that lets you progress. This, however, is a surface level reading, as there are some subtle environmental hints at play that point you in the right direction. But this tone setter, this subtext, grows like the droning soundtrack into a flood of dread, and the first leak is here at the Woodside Apartments. While unassuming at first, if you count a dark, dank apartment block you can almost smell unassuming, this is where all the hallmarks of the genre come into play, with long, narrow corridors obscured by darkness, with the flashlight on James' lapel cutting through this miasma like a Duracell branded knife, highlighting the bin bags filled with weak old spunk for monsters. For clarity, I am not playing the console versions of Silent Hill 2. I am in fact playing the PC version with the wonderful Enhanced Edition mod made by fans, which strives to bring back a ton of the graphical flourishes that the original PS2 version had, which the later Windows version omitted. Now, to be honest, most of the visual nuances are lost on me, apart from the Comic Sans remaster on the 360 and the PS Triple, which, good job Konami, you let the clowns code that shit, didn't ya? But what makes this the ultimate edition of Silent Hill 2 is its quality of life improvements, such as the recent patch, as of the time of writing this script, has a true blue 60 FPS mode, and as a person who hates playing games at 30, this is a very welcome change. Sure, you could play the game at that frame rate before, but like most PC games back then, it would tie its game logic to the target frame rate. Meaning if you played the game faster than its supposed limit, the game would break. And boy howdy was Silent Hill 2 on PC a balked bitch. Especially with our modern day supercomputers, filled with hentai porn and pirate copies of Lost. Overall, the presentation, even without this mod, is great, and the way every area conveys this sad melancholy, or tetanus-induced terror, adds to that crushing dread that the drone and the clunky controls have been feeding to you like a bowl of creepypasta. And the chili sauce is of course the music. While memed on now due to its supposed overuse, and laughing as this take is completely fucking dumb, the soundtrack made by Akira Yamaoka fucking slaps. It creates this musical narrative that sends a player through its peaks and valleys, using themes of trip-hop with moody synth loops and dour drum beats. It has this dancing while horrifically depressed vibe which never gets old. And of course I have to mention the drone once again, which is just as creepy. But it misses that piercing dental drill from the first game. And I know I talked shit about it earlier, but sometimes I think the original did it better. But we are shaken from this haze by this hulking bloke with trigonometry for a face, menacingly standing under a red light. Yeah, you keep flexing behind those bars. In the next room we find a corpse that looks oddly familiar, which leads to the usual survival horror gameplay of finding keys to unlock doors by putting your hand into a demonic butthole, to then get into the first puzzle of this game. And another thing I love about Silent Hill 2, the difficulty. Unlike most games of this ilk, SH2 has separate skills for the main avenues of gameplay, one for the action and one for the puzzles. The action is pretty straightforward, where enemies take more or less hits to kill, and governs the amount of stuff you pick up, and on the other hand, the puzzles, while fun, can be kind of a drag at times, and if you're a big dum-dum like me, turning this shit down is really welcome. And yeah, say like in Resident Evil, you could brute force most puzzles, you didn't really have to think about it too hard. But as we're running around a town governed by a nebulous force, most of these brain ticklers inside are randomized. Not random as say a North Korean AI generated waifu, where it just makes the breast bigger for the glory of its emperor, but with each puzzle posted this clock, has a collection of correct answers to pick. And the skill level you pick will have either a tiny or a hot tub at the Playboy Mansion sized pool of correct answers. I guess this was a way to troll all the cartographers on GameFAQs. Anyway, James walks into a demonic orgy, and instead of sitting on a nearby chair and appreciating the lovemaking, he climbs into the nearest closet to hide as this metallic butt plug slowly walks towards him. And instead of pissing himself and crying like yours truly, James pulls out the blicky. After some more exploring, which is great by the way, we bump into Eddie. I guess you saw that trailer too. And going further into the apartments, we find Angela again. This time lying on the floor with a knife in her hand. This is where the detached voice acting starts to work its magic.
Did you find your mother?
Not yet. She's not anywhere.
Did she live in this apartment building?
I don't know.
So, all you know is she lived in this town.
What did you say? How do you know that?
Well, I just figured, 'cause this is where you're looking for her. How else would I know?
Yeah.
Am I right?
I'm so tired.
Angela's mood swings here make me uneasy. Like if James makes any sudden move, that blade is going to be stuck in him rather than whatever plan she has for herself. And sure, James sounds like he's suffering the bends, which is mostly due to the performances being recorded by the actors separately, but intentional or not, this interaction puts me on edge. And now we have the final piece of the puzzle, we can finally get out of here. Oh hi Pyramid Mark. Yes, it's boss fight time, and you'll never guess what, kids. It fucking sucks. While he looks intimidating, P-Heady moves like Jordan Peterson with a hernia, and all you have to do is keep your distance from his oversized chopper until he fucks off. Look, I know he's here for you to dump all those handgun bullets you've been collecting, but this doesn't do anything for me. It just feels like an arbitrary waste of time. Whatever. We finally make it out of the apartments and back into the foggy streets, and James finds this bratty girl chilling on a wall.
You! It was you, wasn't it? You're the one who stepped on my hand.
I don't know. Maybe I did.
What's a little girl like you doing here anyway?
Huh? Are you blind or something?
What's that letter?
None of your business. You didn't love Mary anyway.
Wait! How do you know Mary's name?
After talking to that snot-nosed scrote, we continue to our supposed special place. But instead of finding Mary, James finds a doppelganger of his deceased wife, called Maria. Her instant flirty nature mixed with her confidence, while James awkwardly simps for her, makes my skin crawl. And I know this sounds silly, but this alone is far more horrifying than all the obvious horrific shit we've seen so far. And James at this point almost sounds delusional.
See? Feel how warm I am?
You're really not Mary.
I told you. I'm Maria.
Sorry. I was confused.
Where are you going?
I'm looking for Mary. Have you seen her?
Didn't you say she died?
Oh yeah, 3 years ago. But I got a letter from her. She says she was waiting in our special place.
And that's here? Anyway, I haven't seen her. Is this your only special place?
Well, there's the hotel too, I guess. The one on the lake? I wonder if it's still there.
The Lakeview Hotel? Yeah, it's still there. So the hotel was your special place, huh? I'll bet it was. Don't get so mad. I was just joking. Anyway, it's not that way. It's this way.
You're coming with me?
You were gonna just leave me?
No, but...
With all these monsters around?
No, I just...
I'm all alone here. Everyone else is gone. I look like Mary, don't I? You loved her, right? Huh, or maybe you hated her.
Don't be ridiculous.
So it's okay?
Yeah, fine.
But this meet cute is short-lived, as the pair end up going to where the common people go, the bowling alley.
I'll wait here. I hate bowling.
I didn't come here to play, you know.
And here is the best line in the game.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
She said she was fine by herself.
And James and Maria give chase to that little turd from earlier. And our duo cut through the local strip club with the best track in the game. And then they find that little girl again, making her way to the hospital, or as I like to call it, the filler arc of this fucking story. That's not a diss, it's just more of the same stuff we've had in the apartments, but now we are facing another iconic monster of this series. And well, hello there.
Please kill me.
And we find out that this girl called Laura is apparently a friend of Mary's.
I was friends with Mary. We met at the hospital. It was last year.
You liar! Laura,
Fine, don't believe me.
But last year, Mary was already...
Which is odd. Put a pin in that. Because this fucking brat locks James in a room with a gang of demonic claw machines. For, yes, once again, an awkward boss fight. Hooray. And here we see the series staple, the Otherworld. It's still the hospital, which is, And oh, we bump into Maria again. And James, like the smooth talker he is, puts his fucking foot in his mouth.
James!
Mary? Oh, Maria. It's you. I thought you were... Sorry. Anyway, I'm glad you're alive.
Anyway? What do you mean, anyway? You don't sound very happy to see me. I was almost killed back there. Why didn't you try to save me? All you care about is that dead wife of yours. I've never been so scared in my whole life.
But that's okay, because Red P-Head shortly puts his oversized steak knife inside of her. Maria Mishima is dead. Now solo and back on the beat, James heads towards the best part of this journey, the Silent Hill Historical Society, where that slow burn of tension that has been growing from the very start finally hits its horrifying climax. This long staircase invokes that feeling of a nightmare, that never-ending descent into the unknown. At the bottom, you open the door and discover that you are not in a museum, you are now in a prison. And this is where the logic of this place falls apart. And the only way out of here is to take a leap of faith. Over and over, James throws himself into the bleakness without a care for his well-being. And during this we find Eddie, sitting on the floor with a revolver in his hand, basking in the glow of murdering some poor schmo. And his erratic denial of the situation adds to this feeling of intimidation.
What do you mean, just for that?
Eddie, you can't just kill someone because of the way they looked at you.
Oh yeah? Why not? Till now I always let people walk all over me. Just like that stupid dog. He had it coming too.
Eddie?
I was just joking, James. He was dead when I got here, honest. Anyway, I gotta run.
You're going out there alone?
Yeah.
Eddie?
Once again, James is on a knife edge here, as he could be joining this poor bloke if he doesn't play his cards right. And here we are introduced to the cell blocks. And I'm gonna shut up so you can hear this. This section right here is burned into my brain. Whenever I think of Silent Hill, I think of this. This section is not only a standout moment in a series filled with standout moments of sheer dread, it might be one of the greatest I've ever seen. And sure, you could extrapolate a shred of hyperbole from that whimsy, but this is where I went from a Silent Hill enjoyer and a survival horror enjoyer to a die-hard fan. Okay, to nitpick, the puzzle where you combine a lighter, a horseshoe, and a wax doll to MacGyver a makeshift handle to open a bottomless pit smells of that old school point and click Moon logic. But as we are here in the mouth of madness, I can let it slide, because this is where the game really gets cooking. Walking through these familiar yet detached corridors that twist and turn in unnatural ways plays into the theme of madness and nightmares like I mentioned earlier. Nothing makes sense, and the further our protagonist goes, the more we feel this unease, and those hang-ups I had with the game just melt away. And as we go down another gauntlet of rabbit holes, we end up in a place where we find Mr. Peabody's Cloud cosplay, which basically one-shots most enemies, apart from a doorway blocked by razor wire, apparently. But then we find Maria, who is alive? And if you thought James was losing it back when they first met, well now he's completely detached from reality. And trust me, we'll pick apart those layers later, because James is currently busy reacting to the blood-curdling screams of Angela, being attacked by this repulsive creature she refers to as her father, with its gross-looking mouth. And this boss fight, yes it's terrible, is in a room filled with, oh god. Is that eyes? Oh, nope. No. After leaving the Clive Barker room, we catch up with a reincarnated Maria and...
Maria? Maria, no! What happened to you? Why?
For a character that creeps my balls off, I can't help but feel sorry for her. Which leads to James walking into a graveyard with one of the tombstones being a teaser for a future game. And, sorry, I'm struggling to segue out of that. Fuck. So, let's lighten the mood with, you guessed it, another shitty boss fight. With the bloke that would defo unironically tweet edgy Joker gifs. You know him, you hate him, it's Eddie, and I kinda dislike this moment because it's not very good mechanically, and I also feel bad for shooting his pathetic ass. But then to lighten the mood, James says this.
Eddie? Eddie? I killed a human being. A human being.
Oh, oh James, you are adorable. But after this, it's time to leave and get to the real special place, the Lakeview Hotel, once we dog paddle our way over there. Come on! And in the restaurant we find Laura, but instead of being a turd for once, she gives a letter to James she stole from Mary's nurse. Inside it says that this letter is for Laura after she passes away, and tells her to give James a chance because of his surly demeanour, and also says that she loves her like her own daughter, and wishes her a happy 8th birthday. And shit, by now I'm questioning my own sanity.
Laura, how old are you?
I turned 8 last week.
So, Mary couldn't have died 3 years ago. Could she really be here?
But here, this mystery is hiding a darker secret. While further exploring this place, James finds the tape that was left behind from their last stay. And you may think this is a video of him pelvic thrusting on the edge of tears, but no. Instead, when he enters the room where he and Mary stayed, we see on this tape that James does the unthinkable to his dying wife. And finally coming to this realization, he breaks down. There's nothing really insightful to say here. This is just a absolute fucking kick in the nuts, but in the best way possible. It's wow. It changes how you think of James. And this is where we need to rewind. I know most of you hardcore Johnnies were probably screaming at me or clicked off because I haven't talked about the secret meaning of James' left bollock or whatever. But sometimes I feel like explaining the finer details of stories like this can rob you of your own personal takes. So I kept some stuff obscured on purpose to talk about it here and tell you how the story of Silent Hill 2 affects me. And no, I'm not going to go into a screed about how it cured my depression, but I will touch on why you see a lot of people tie their personal issues to this story. The thing I adore about this story in particular is that everything is drenched in symbolism. From the first minute of play, you see these little nods that will go over your head on the first time around, but on further playthroughs, they bounce off the screen, screaming at you. And while our initial takes in that first playthrough will get caught up with the stiffness of the voice acting and the creepy ambience, the story is always being told to you visually, such as the bodies that James stumbles into that look just like him. The one in the apartment is the most blatant example here, but that doesn't take away what it's trying to represent. This corpse sitting in front of the TV is a mirror to our protag's mood later on, and the characters you meet and the monsters you face all reflect on James. The off-putting sexiness of the ghouls is another example. Spawned from his frustrations, most of the creatures you face have a feminine edge to them that have been twisted into these gross collages of desire. The mannequin in particular creeps me the fuck out. Its form of being a pair of legs on top of another pair of legs makes no sense. But in a nightmare where a rational thought takes the mundane and makes it into this, it's fucking terrifying. Another is of course the bubblehead nurse, with their uncanny twitchy movements. Sure, they were an enemy in the first game, and now they are pretty much the queen bitches of this franchise, but here they move away from that grotesque lump with a massive tumour on their back in the first one, to something that's fallen backward for a BDSM cum butcher shop. They also have a darker, more aggressive variant when you enter the other world, but this doesn't take away what they are to James, and is another member of this conga line that wants to either frag or fuck him. And then we have the iron-faced Chad himself, and is basically the figurehead of this chunky bowl of rusty cuddles. The red pyramid thing, or pyramid head, or that dick with a screw-fix warehouse stapled to his noggin, whatever name the internet will bother Masahiro Ito with needless tweets this week, is iconic. And community pedantry aside, out of all the things that go bump in the night, Pyramid Pete is the only masculine monster of this set. Armed with his penis extension that makes all the spiky-haired anime twinks horny, he slowly guides our protag through this hell of his own creation. And while the shallow assumption of him being the embodiment of Jim's sexual frustrations is accurate, he's also the part of him that feels that he deserves punishment for what he's done to his wife. He is the personification of James's guilt. And in context, this is a really interesting facet because he could have just been another bad guy. And in every game post Team Silent, he is the embodiment of fan service, because we all know it ain't muted mounds without old P-chan. Ooh woo. But that's the magic of Silent Hill. It isn't its lore and how this terrifying cult-flavoured sausage is made, it's how this town passes the main character a cheese grater made of their own hang-ups, and then screams encouragement as they grind it against their genitals. It's subtle, psychological, and is a great tonic against those dipshit games that rely on nothing but cheap scares to set the mood. It's about that slow burn, and using every facet it's given to convey its horror. And even when it's not outwardly terrifying, what makes SH2 in particular special is this restraint of making you believe it's one thing while spoon-feeding you the darker shit subconsciously. And that's the point. It's ambiguous. It's sticking your arm in a hole and recoiling in fear over what just brushed against it. Is it real? Is it in your head? Or is it a Polish translation of a horror classic being replaced with walking in one direction and boring people to death with needless tangents? Well, that's for you to decide. And this is what the last quarter of the story is, where that ambiguity and how you interpret it is what makes it special. Now, personally, I feel like James is a fucking rat for killing his wife, but then when you see how far gone Mary was in terms of her terminal illness, mutually assured destruction would be more my thing, rather than slowly and painfully slipping away. And refreshingly, instead of putting you on a rigid moral path, like most games do now, and I fucking hate it, the way you get an ending is governed by how you play. Such as if you keep yourself in tip-top shape, and constantly read Mary's letter from the start of this saga, then by the end you will get the leave ending, where James makes peace with his wife and himself, and with her blessing, he moves on with his life. On the flip side, if you play like a blind gopher with sporks for hands, you get the in water ending, where James does a naked jakey and drives off the bridge with his missus, and no game, no, naughty game. You can't do that. There is also another ending where you leave with Maria, which is easily the most cynical, especially with the bitter pill of irony when she starts to cough like his late wife, and it just makes you want to kick Sunday in the bollocks for siding with this fucking harpy. And of course we have the canon ending. And don't tell me it's not, because it fucking is. And besides, we have no time to argue, as we have a bigger fish and a clever miniskirt to fry. Out of all the characters, Maria, to me, is the most fascinating. She comes out of seemingly nowhere to confuse our lead with her unsettling, uncanny candor, and it adds to the detached nature of Jimmy's world crumbling around him. To cut to the chase, Maria is the antagonist of this story, even more than this fuckhead with a metal coal shed for a noggin. She is a siren, trying to stray this doe-eyed fisherman off his rusty proverbial boat, and the way she taunts James by being constantly murdered hits harder than any big blade would ever do. But most of this doesn't really humanize her. From the bat, she is a monster, and the further we go on, the more this narrative is obvious. But what makes her one of my favourites in all of games is her side story, called Born from a Wish. That was included in the special editions of Silent Hill 2, and even though I've beaten the main story countless times before, I never have played this until now. And god damn, what it doesn't have in content, as this side story is only about half an hour long, it gives you this snub-nosed revolver of context. In this opening monologue, Maria lays out her intentions.
When I woke up, I was all alone. Everyone's gone. Is it because of those monsters? What do I do now? Do I fight and live? Or do those monsters get me? I don't have any reason to go on living. But I'm scared to die. I'm so afraid of pain. Should I run away? I want to find somebody. I don't like being alone. But is there anyone left alive?
Yearning to find another soul, she finds herself in a mansion. And look at this hallway. That's some old school survival horror shit right there. All that's missing is a bearded twat, prattling on about sandwiches. Anyway, going through the dusky halls, Maria bumps into Ernest, who doesn't want to talk to our lead face to face, and refuses to open the door to speak to her. After some more nosing around, we find out that his daughter died in an accident on his birthday, and he tasks Maria to find a bottle of white fluid. that can be used in some kind of ritual to the old gods to bring her back. And overall, it's a compact little distraction that I quite enjoyed. But what makes this essential to the overall story is Maria's internal struggle with why she is here, and remembering names of her townsfolk that she shouldn't know, such as in the kids' room when she says the name Laura. But this exchange right here is the smoking gun.
Do you believe in fate?
Not really.
That's fine then.
Ernest, can I open this?
This is a dead end. There's nothing beyond here.
I know. So, what if I had said I believed in fate?
That James. He's a bad man.
James. Yes. I know.
He's looking for the you that isn't you.
Because he's kind? Do you know something?
Yes. Maria, you're...
Anyway, that's just what you think. You don't really know anything. That's fine.
Okay.
You see, Maria only exists because James subconsciously wills her into existence. She is a manifestation of his delusions, as a way to cope with the fact he murdered his wife. And without words, you can see this crushing realization on her face, that sinking feeling that she has no free will. And you can see her crisis of self almost consuming her before she tosses her piece over the wall, where we first encounter Laura. And with the acceptance of her existence, she decides to follow the pull of this parasitic Berg towards the Berg who created this hell. It's a disquieting wrinkle to this story, and I really fuck with it. It brings this hefty, delicious, creepy layer to this onion sandwich. And after this revelation, I want to touch on the phenomenon that this and other media of this style has. It's kind of cliche now, where people on YouTube go into their personal traumas and how Silent Hill 2 helps them with these issues, like a therapy dog called something that will trigger that trauma, shout out to Blair Witch. And while I find these mind dumps a bit much at times, these feelings coming from these op-eds are genuine and, dare I say it, relatable. A story on the human condition is, like I said earlier, a siren's call to anyone holding on to their own pain. And through media, it helps them purge these hang-ups in a safe and progressive way. And that's a good thing. And I'll admit, there is something to Silent Hill 2 that hits you in that spot, especially its narrative being one long allegory for depression, that dissolution of reality, the crushing lows, counteracted with the highest of highs, and the detached ennui as you feel like you're in this whirlwind of despair. And personally, this is not why I play this game. I can see why people gravitate towards it. And while I don't have anything deeper to say about it, I find that emotional, for lack of a better term, baggage makes what I would say about Silent Hill 2 to be contentious in these people's eyes. And I'm not here to poke that. And personally, my Silent Hill nostalgia is safe for this greasy mug, and his inability to leave his flat because of spoopy shit. And we'll talk about that sometime. But I do believe that media is a great way to help you in those times of need, and Silent Hill 2 has helped people in this manner. And I think that's fucking beautiful. And this, coupled with the fantastic story, has kept this game in the minds of the people, and its ambiguity is just fun to speculate on. Like, every inane thing becomes something more. Sure, this part of the fandom can leave me cold and concerned, especially when it comes to shit like the circumcision conspiracy, and yes, that is real, look it up, but I would be a liar to say I wasn't intrigued when people find something inside this game that supposedly adds to the experience. Like recently, with that picture that's been going around, where James is looking into the mirror, and when you turn the brightness up, you can see his little beady eyes staring right at you. And yeah, sure, this was shot down by Masahiro Ito, the creature designer and professional grumpy dad, saying that this wasn't a thing, it was just, that's how it was. There was no intent behind it. Nevertheless, it makes for a striking image and a fantastic talking point. But then another symptom of this overthinking everything within this series is due to, for the longest time, Silent Hill was dead. Apart from the odd skate deck or pachinko machine, or a gaggle of Western developed movies and games that span from decent to the drizzling shits, it left its rabid fanbase to clutch at these decaying straws. Hell, people made careers on YouTube talking about this fog-filled series alone, and it's one of the reasons why I shied away from talking about it for so long, as what the fuck can you say that's not been said already? Well, until you realise it's not been said the way I would say it, irreverent little potty mouth I am. But self-aggrandising bollocks aside, Silent Hill 2 warts and all is easily one of my favourite games, and it gets sweeter with age, thanks to the fans who mod it and the people who passionately talk about it. While I feel that this monkey cage can become too boisterous at times, the game itself, removed from these warblings and petulance of its frothier members of the fanbase, has a meaty story that is just a riot to witness, even though the content inside have more content warnings than the Greg sausage roll. And sure, the gameplay itself is and always was a creaky bitch, taken as a whole, it's an atmosphere that's uniquely its own, and that's why it's still celebrated. And sure, I could have gone into the other characters that surround James, but come on, this is a review, not a census. And besides, a story that covers so many delicate topics, and does them well, would never work in modern games writing. Like the trauma Angela went through would be discussed in a way that's either played for laughs, or she'd be sat here for half an hour verbally explaining her character. James and Maria would fuck, which would lead to a jump scare when he swaps from doggy to missionary, and the monster frottage in the apartment would be a QTE, where you mash the button to stop Sunday from spoffing his wranglers in horny suspense. So yeah, while this game is essentially abandonware, it's far more mature than most horror games now. Oh balls! I purposely forgot to mention the remake, and we are at the end of this video as well. So I can't possibly go into a rant like most of these chuds talking about this fucking game. That's not even out yet. And I know, how are you going to live without my hot take that will be instantly dated when this fucking thing falls out the cynical slot pipe? Oh well, I guess as the saying goes, if you don't have anything nice to say, then don't say anything.